Hello, everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of Inzane. This is something new we are starting where we are going to interview people who are involved in the world of politics. Today is our first episode, and we have Mark Meuser on. Mark Meuser is running for the U.S. Senate seat in California against incumbent Alex Padilla, and we had a great conversation with him. I hope you enjoy this show, and I hope you tune in for more because we have a lot of interviews with a lot of people coming up soon. Hi, what's going on? Thank you so much for joining us.
My privilege.
I really, really do appreciate it, and I know all of us here do appreciate it as well.
Hey, let's have a good conversation.
Yeah, I'm so excited. So I just first want to ask you, why are you running for U.S. Senate in such a Democrat state like California?
Well, that's a awesome question, and there's so many different answers I can give to that because there's not just a single answer.
Yeah.
But I mean, as a historian, you see a lot of old books behind me. I do a lot of reading of our old history. And, there are many, many examples out there where it looks inevitable. Yet, because somebody stands up and somebody speaks the truth, you can actually, you see major political movements happen in this country. And so I am somebody who is a constitutional Republican. Not too much older than you are right now. I bought my first edition set of the Madison Papers. The Madison Papers are the diaries of James Madison that he took during the Constitutional Convention. So from a very, very young age, I have been a scholar of, the American Constitution. I've been a studier of our history, our foundational documents. And so I am somebody who understands and loves the United States government and the unique environment that it creates to allow anybody to succeed. Somebody like Hoover, who was born in poverty, lost both of his parents before he was a teenager, lived from foster home to foster home, finally started to get an education by the time he was in high school. And you really couldn't say much of that. Yet he rose all the way to the United States presidency. And in addition to that, he had great wealth, but he leveraged that to helping many different administrations, both Republican and Democrat. So the American dream is alive today, especially when we hold true to that constitutional form of government. And so I am somebody who is an attorney who, does constitutional law, who is on the forefront of fighting for people's constitutional rights, whether it's their First Amendment rights, the Second Amendment rights, whether it deals with elections and what belongs to the state and what belongs to the federal government. My whole career is based around the Constitution and fighting for those documents. But I'm also somebody who, from a very young age, I think I was 14 years old when I volunteered for my first campaign to go knock doors. And over the 40 some odd years that I've lived, I have knocked over 1 million doors in my lifetime, going out there, talking to people. And so as somebody who, understands what good government is, and as somebody who, fights for good government, and as somebody who has a passion to see us return to some more core fundamental principles as to where you have a right to be everything that you want to be, that you have the right to get that American dream. I feel I have an obligation to sometimes put my legal career on hold and step up there, be the man in the arena, and fight for something, even though many people say that it is impossible. I'm actually looking at polling data, and I don't think it's impossible. It's a long shot, but I don't think it's impossible.
Yeah, it's definitely possible for you to win. So you ran for Secretary of State back in 2018, correct?
That is correct.
And it was against Alex Padilla. Do you have something against Alex Padilla?
It's actually kind of funny is when he got appointed to the U.S. Senate, I actually had a couple different media outlets call me up. It's like, okay, you've campaigned against him. He's going to have to defend this seat. Tell us how he runs his campaigns, who he is from your perspective. And it was all off the record type conversations. But when the conversation was over, they said, so are you planning on running against him? I said, absolutely not. I am going to be running for something in 2022 because when I was recruited to run for Secretary of State, I was recruited because I do constitutional election law. The Secretary of State is the chief election officer of the state. And as somebody who understands a lot of the election problems that we have in our state, these election attorneys wanted somebody like me in that office. So I got recruited for that position in 2018. And these people said, but we want you to make one promise to us. And that is, too many people just run once and they lose and they go on with their lives. We want you to promise us that you'll run again statewide in 2022. Take the network that you build and build upon it for 2022. And so when I was recruited, I made a promise that I would run again. Now, I was assuming I was going to be running again for Secretary of State. But because of COVID, I ended up being one of the foremost attorneys in the nation who was fighting for people's constitutional rights, whether it was to go to church, whether it was to go to school, whether it's to go to the beach, whether their business could be open, whether they could have First Amendment protest in front of the United States Capitol or the California State Capitol. My focus became a little bit more on the issues of these First Amendment rights. Also, one of the main reasons why there's so many problems across our nation with our elections is a law called the National Voter Registration Act, and it's a law passed by in 1994, it was signed or 93, it was signed into law by Bill Clinton, and that particular law made it very difficult to clean the voter rolls. And many of the irregularities in our elections, and it's not just a right versus left issue. For many years, it was the left that was complaining about the irregularities in our election. Hillary Clinton, 2016, Stacey Abrams in 2018, running for Georgia. Donald Trump, yes, has raised it in 2020, but many of our irregularities in our elections are due to these bloated voter rolls because we have a federal law that makes it very difficult to clean up the voter rolls, very difficult to actually for the citizens to make their government officials check the voter rolls. And when you have bloated voter rolls where hundreds of thousands of people are receiving ballots who no longer live in the state of California, people are concerned about the integrity of the election. And when you have a very close election, the loser is always going to point towards these election irregularities. So in order to have integrity in our election process, we are going to need to deal with the National Voter Registration Act. So as somebody who has been very involved in elections, and that's why I was recruited into Secretary of State, running for U.S. Senate, where there is a major piece of legislation that's going to have to be passed to do it, my message hasn't changed in that stretch. But because of all the work that I've done on fighting for people's constitutional rights, it just seemed a better path for me to go for the U.S. Senate, where I could deal with many of the issues that I've been dealing with the courts, deal with that legislatively, and also deal with the election issues. I could do both of those from a U.S. Senate, where I could only deal with one of the issues from the Secretary of State's perspective.
Yeah, that's great. I just thought it was just so funny how you were running against Padilla again. Like I was researching you because I was just building this up, and then I saw that, and I thought that would be a funny question to ask because, well,
you're not the first, and you will not be the last.
So California in 2022 has a special election because it used to be Kamala Harris's seat. Could you explain why that makes you and Alex Padilla on the ballot twice?
Okay, I love this question. And this actually goes back to the founding of our country and the United States Constitution. In our Constitution, the founding fathers set it up so that the United States Senate was appointed by the state legislatures. The people did not have the right to select their United States senator. That they selected their congressman. The senator was appointed by the legislature, which meant the senators were more answerable to the state legislature than they were the people. In I think, what was it, 1917, I think it was, or late 1910s, we passed a constitutional amendment that said we the people actually get to select our U.S. senators. Now, in the United States Constitution, if a congressman resigned, the governor was supposed to select wasn't allowed to select their appointment. He had to call a special election. But for a U.S. senator, the governor got to make an appointment that was only valid until the next time that the legislature got in session. Because back then, legislatures could often be out of session for as many as 18 months. And they did not want there to be a vacancy in the United States Senate because each state only had 2. You didn't want to have a vacancy for 18 months. And so the United States Constitution said the governor can make an appointment, but it's only last until the next session where the legislature got together. Well, when they amended the Constitution and had it so that we the people made the selection, they didn't play with that language. And so it created a lot of confusion over, okay, yeah, everybody agreed that the governor could make an appointment, but how long was that appointment good for? I mean, let's say somebody got elected, they got sworn in, and the very next day they died. Does the governor get to make an appointment that lasts almost 6 years or 5 years, 11 months, and 30 days? Mm-hmm. And so that was an issue that was litigated, and the courts eventually came up with a rule that a governor can make an appointment, but that appointment was only valid until the next general election. And at that point in time, the appointment ends and the people's choice fills that gap. And so because Kamala Harris was elected in 2016, her 6-year term would have ended on January 3rd, which meant this November 8th, we would have been voting on a new 6-year term. But because there's now a gap between November 9th and January 3rd, because Gavin Newsom's appointment ends on November 8th, then the date of the general election, we had a 7-week gap. And so we, the people, get to vote for a 7-week gap plus a full 6-year term, which is why I'm on the ballot twice. So it's a little bit unique situation. I mean, we saw a couple years ago in Alabama where the governor made an appointment and he just immediately called a special election. And so every state does it a little bit differently, but the thing is, you can't have these. You can't just have a long appointment that the governor just gets to make an appointment that lasts years upon years.
Yeah, because then one party would just have control of what would be like a Democrat state if there was a Republican governor or whatever, something like that.
Yeah, it goes both ways. So
yeah. So I was reading up on your website, like about you, and I kind of want to just like talk a little bit about you, not just like the politics side, because the politics side is fun, but like I saw that you completed an Ironman. Could you
I've now completed 2 of them?
You completed 2 of them? Oh, well, there we go. Could you like tell us about like the training, like, because I know like it's a big mental challenge to do something like that, and you could kind of compare like the Ironman to running this race, for example?
Well, it is a lot of work. I'll tell you, last year before I got into the U.S. Senate race, I was working out about 20 to 25 hours a week, plus doing my full-time, work and everything I was doing there. So when you're doing, a full Ironman is a 2.4 mile swim. It is a 112 mile bike ride, and then a marathon, so 26.2 mile run. I completed in 2015 Ironman Cozumel, and last year I did Ironman Coeur d'Alene. But I've also done many half Ironmans. I think I've completed 15 half Ironmans.
Wow.
That's just a warm up for training to get you ready for a full one. It's a whole different beast to get ready for a full. But you're right. For me, because of the litigation work I do, it's very mentally draining work at times. Especially during COVID, where I was working close to 20 hours a day, 7 days a week for months on end. It really is mentally draining. And I have found that if I'm going to keep myself sharp on the legal side of things, I needed to have something that just allowed me to shut my mind down. And so swimming and running and even bicycling are when I'm out there exercising, I'm really just able to tune everything out, just shut it down, focus in on counting my strokes when I'm swimming or keeping my pace. And it's one of the things that I have found personally to make sure that I have a good work-life balance is that in order to give everything I can to, whether it's political or legal, I needed to set aside at least a little bit of time to just completely shut down the mind. And I do that by, full on, training.
Yeah, that I don't know, because I watched this one video on an Ironman and he trained for almost a year. It seems like just so much work to get prepared for something as big as that and as challenging as, an Ironman.
Well, I mean, there are people who are professional who have, trained for decades.
Yeah.
Thing. And, I'm not the best out there in the world. I'm nowhere near the best out there, but I enjoy it. It's a great, I don't want to call it distraction, but it's a great way to create some life balance. And, it's not for everybody, but, for me, I think I was about 7, 8 years old, sitting in my father's living room, and we were watching Wide World of Sports, and they were showing this Kona Ironman, and it planted a seed at a very young age. It's like, that is difficult. That would be a challenge to complete.
Yeah.
And I still have a goal that I would like to qualify and go to Kona and do the World Championships in Kona. So for me, I don't know that I will be doing this for the rest of my life. I have some other sporting goals that I would love to do. One of them is I'd like to do Race Across America on my bike, where you start in Oceanside and you go all the way to Annapolis, Maryland, and you do it in about 10 days. But right now my focus is on the triathlon. Well, actually my focus is on running for U.S. Senate. But
athletic wise,
my goal is to qualify for Kona. Man, when I get done with that, I'll probably start changing my goals a little bit, and got to set something else.
Yeah,
a new goal for yourself.
And here's the goal I have. So, I read on your website that you're an avid reader.
Yep.
So when I was in 5th grade, I wrote this book. It's called The Mystery of Roanoke.
Okay.
I was wondering if I could send it over to you and you could read it. It might have a little bit of bad grammar because it's, 5th grade me, but I think it's kind of interesting.
I will. You go ahead and send. You got my email. Go ahead and send it to me, and my team will get it to me, and I'll be more than happy to look at that. But I think I know what you're talking. I think I'm very familiar with the story.
Yeah, because you said a little bit. You got a little bit of history in that. So Roanoke, I just thought it was interesting. Yeah. Dylan, do you have any questions to ask?
Yeah. So I was reading an article before I got on here, and it said that you actually have, I believe it was 47% favorability between Democrats. So my question is, as a Republican, seeing all these other Republicans still winning with a much lower favorability percentage. How do you think you got there? How do you think you have a lot of love between both sides?
I think a lot of it has to do with I am perceived as someone who's been fighting for the underdogs. I've been fighting against Gavin Newsom. So if you're a small business owner and your business was shut down and I'm out there fighting for you, you're not going to necessarily have a negative opinion. If you're a parent who has children who all of a sudden were forced to stay at home during the COVID pandemic, and I'm the one out there fighting to get your kid back to school, you're going to have somewhat a more favorable opinion of me. Now, obviously, I'm not in a race where like Herschel Walker or Dr. Oz or Adam Laxalt, where millions of dollars are being spent on basically tearing down each other. And so as such, that is, when some of the only impression that people have is, the media that they've read of the lawsuits that I filed on their behalf, it gives me an ability to have a little bit more positive image of myself because I haven't yet. And don't worry, if this race gets close in September and October, there'll be plenty of attacks about how unreasonable guy I am and the unreasonable policies I have. And, that's to a nature, that's what politics is. But right now, my numbers are high because of the fact that I am perceived as a fighter for the people and for the little guy against a tyrannical, overzealous, bureaucracy.
All right, Julius, do you have any questions?
Yeah. I was gonna ask, what do you think is the biggest problem facing your state right now?
Now, remember, I'm running for United States Senate, so it's more of a federal office than a state-specific office. If I was running for the biggest problems of California, I'd be running for governor because the governor can really take care of those state issues. But to answer your question, what are the biggest problems Californians are facing that I can deal with on a federal level? I think I'll say that there's three issues. One is inflation, two is gas prices, and three is crime, where we have what I call pro-criminal district attorneys that are selectively prosecuting, selectively enforcing the law. And because people who are violating the law are not being prosecuted to the full nature of the law, they are being freed to commit crimes more frequently. So those are the three main issues that if I get elected as United States Senator, that we can do something with immediately, because we could start balancing the budget. We can start cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. We can make United States energy independent once again. And we can start dealing with these prosecutors who are not enforcing the law. So there's some stuff that I can do on the national level to deal with these specific California problems. But many of the California problems, that's going to have to be dealt with the state legislature, are going to have to be dealt with by the governor. And since I'm not running for those offices, I can't really address those from the United States Senate.
Do you like Brian Dahl, who's the nominee for governor?
Brian Dahle is his name.
Sorry, my bad.
No problem. It is unusual. I think he will make a great governor in the state of California. I think he has very good policies. He also is focusing in on this issue of crime. And what's interesting, if you look at the state of California has a long history of voting for Republicans in years where there are high crime. When crime becomes an issue in the state of California, people are willing to cross party lines. When Reagan was elected in the 60s, it was a time there was a lot of turmoil in the country. We had the Vietnam War. There was a lot of protests going on at the colleges and stuff like that. It was a very tumultuous time. And people said, we need a law and order governor. When Duke Majan was elected as governor, there was still a lot of gang problems in LA. And people said, you know what? I'm going to forsake my party in order to put somebody who is a law and order candidate. Again, in the 90s, Pete Wilson, we had just had the Rodney King riots. There's still a lot of crime, a lot of gang problems in LA. And again, the state of California said, we are going to elect a governor who is a law and order governor. And, I've talked and I've studied. And the thing about California is if there is a underlining principle and issue, they will cross party lines in a heartbeat. If there's an issue that will drive them to the polls. When we don't see crime as a major issue, like we did in the 2000s and 2010s, when crime was not an issue, they revert back to their party. When Reagan was elected governor, 55% of the state was registered Democrat, but they overwhelmingly voted for Reagan. So you got to understand, there were a lot of Democrat governors before Reagan. There are a lot of U.S. senators, but the thing is, when there are issues that rise above politics, that is when the state of California says enough is enough. And 2022, because of inflation, because of crime, because of the attack on kids' education, these issues are rising up, and people that the decline to states, the independents, they have a very low view of what the Democrats are doing. And right now, it's polling in like 10%, which means 90% of the people do not like the direction that the state is going, that the nation is going, who are independents. And so those people are going to be crossing over. There's a lot of what we call the blue dog Democrats, many of them which are supporting my campaign, making contributions to my campaign, volunteering for my campaign. Those people are going to be issue voters. I've seen some stuff, Roe v. Wade is a very important issue to a lot of people. But I've been seeing studies and I've seen news articles on it where people said, my litmus test is where do you stand on Roe v. Wade? But not this year. This year, my issue is the economy. This year, my issue is energy independence. This year is my child's education. This year, my issue is crime. So for that, it's a very important thing to remember that Californians will vote party, except for those times when issues rise above. And we're looking at the polling data today, and it's very similar to many elections that we had in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, where people abandoned party and went for principles.
I prepared about 2 questions.
2 questions, and I got 3 answers for you.
All right, that's great. All right. My first question is, I don't know if someone's already asked this. They probably have. Since California is such like a deep blue state, right?
I already asked it.
Yeah. Well, I'd like
that.
to hear the answer. Though California is a very blue state. How would you plan on winning, and like what differentiates you from other Republicans that makes you think that you can win it?
I have really hit on a lot of this already, so you're going to have to go back and watch the interview.
Yeah.
But a couple things that I will add to it is what we have going on in 2022 that is so different than past elections is right now we are living in a time where 60% of this nation, 60% of Californians can't even meet their bills because of inflation and because of gas prices. And people are going to be more issue-oriented voters this particular year. We are seeing polling data right now that shows that Hispanics, which is 30% of the electorate in the state of California, Hispanics under the age of 50 have abandoned the Democrat Party. We are seeing numbers like 19% of Hispanics have a favorable approval rating of Democrats right now. That means 4 out of every 5 Hispanic voters is looking for a different option. We didn't have that 2 years ago. We didn't have that 4 years ago. We didn't have that 10 years ago. So there's a major shift in Hispanic voting. There's a major shift in decline to state voters or independent voters. And parents, there's been a major shift of parent voters also. So there are 3 major demographics of voters who tend to not vote in primary elections, but vote in general elections, who have, according to the poll, have done a 180 in the party that they prefer. And so it is important for me as a candidate to get out there, speak to the people, get my message out there, because there are a lot of people who do not consider themselves right or left, but many people out there who are looking for solutions. They don't want to be governed crisis to crisis. They would like somebody out there promoting an agenda of allowing them to live the American dream. And your second question.
Oh, my second question is what differentiates. I'm sorry, I can't even pronounce words right now. Sorry. What makes you different from other Republicans that you?
I have a history as a constitutional attorney of being a fighter for the little guy. You know, I have brought multiple lawsuits against Fortune 500 companies. I have brought over 22 lawsuits against Gavin Newsom when Biden decided to use the vaccine mandate to demand that, or use OSHA to mandate vaccines. I was one of the attorneys who filed the first lawsuit in the nation over this. So I am perceived by the people as a fighter, and people want politicians that they don't want politicians that go to DC and do insider training and personally profit. They want to elect people who are fighting for them. That is why Trump is so popular. That is why Bernie Sanders is so popular. That is why Ted Cruz is popular. And I could show you people on both the right or on the left, the politicians that tend to rise up in the nation are the people who are perceived to be fighters, people who are fighting for the people. And I have a history over the last couple decades of fighting for the people over big business, over big government.
All right, thank you.
Is that all the questions that everyone has?
I
Those
actually
were the
have
only
one
questions I had time to
more.
prepare.
I
So-
couldn't hear anyone.
Okay, you go.
So recently we saw Roe v. Wade being overturned. Do you think this potentially could set you and a lot of other Republicans back, since the Supreme Court had a conservative majority?
There are people who think it will, and you know, in many election years, it might have been because of how partisan of an issue it is. But in California, the people who are pro-choice, they're going to be coming out to vote anyways. The question is, are they going to be getting the people in the middle to come out and vote for them because of the issue of Roe v. Wade? The people in the middle in the state of California, their number one issue is going to be the economy. And there's nothing that's a close second. The issue of crime, the issue of the economy, those are the issues that are driving people to the polls to vote in 2022. So the activists are still they were going to come out and vote no matter what. They're going to still be out there working no matter what. But it's what the individuals in the middle that can go right or left, what are the issues that are going to drive them? And the fact that we live in California, where the California state legislature has the ability, under the Dobbs decision, it is reverted to the states. So since the state of California is not going to go out and do anything to the issue of pro-choice, the people in the middle do not feel threatened by this issue. So what they can do is they can now vote on their pocketbook, which is the issue that's most important to them this year. So as I look at it today, in my opinion, it appears that while this could, in a different election year, it might have been a bigger issue. This year, because of the economy and because of crime, and because the state legislature is not going to do anything about it, I don't think it's going to have the impact that some people think it's going to have.
So Julius, do you have a question for
Yeah.
him?
So Gavin Newsom recently ran an ad in Florida. Um, what's your opinion on him, running ads outside of his own state? And do you think that's some sort of like publicity stunt to maybe get more attention for possibly running in 2024?
I think that's exactly what it was. I think everybody knows that that's what it was. That it was, it was about 100. If I remember right, it's about $100,000 spent. It was spent on Fox News in Florida. Now let's stop and think about that. People watching Fox News in Florida, the likelihood that they're moving to California to vote, this really has nothing to do with changing votes or anything like that. The whole thing was designed so that way he got publicity and national attention. And I've watched a few YouTube videos of people on the right or people on the left talking about his political commercial. And, with somebody who, has millions of dollars in his campaign coffers, the whole thing was to get the national news talking about him. And as the national news was talking about him, people were more likely to be giving to his campaign. And yeah, I personally believe it was nothing but a political stunt.
Do you think he plans on running for president?
Anybody who has been following his career knows that he's running for president. I don't care how much he denies it. If you look at what he's doing, how he's doing it, he is posturing himself to run for president.
Yeah, and clearly that ad in Florida would be a sign. Not even a state, not even a candidate he's running against.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
He's
an
trying
attempt
to.
against DeSantis. So I got one final question. I don't know if anyone else has any final questions.
I got one more.
Okay,
But you go.
I have one. What is the biggest endorsement that you have received so far? Or who? Who or what?
I would say the biggest endorsement is the 1.5 million people who voted for me in the primary, because I'm out there representing the people. And, the fact is that there was a millionaire who dumped I think a billionaire who dumped $4 million in advertising. And I think he only got a couple 100,000 votes. And so to me, having 1.5 million people, put my click, that's the biggest endorsement I could ask for.
That's the answer I was low-key hoping for. I didn't want to say it because I just love that answer. I always dreamed if I get asked that question, oh, it's the people who vote for me.
Yeah. Well, and 4 years ago when I ran for Secretary of State, I had 4.4 million people vote for me. Now I need to up that number to this November. It probably need about 6 to 7 million people to vote for me. So I got my work cut out for me, but hey, we'll keep building and we're going to see what happens.
You did an Ironman, so anything's possible, right?
Anything's possible.
All right. Who has a question now?
Yeah, I have another one. So Biden has something like a 33% job approval rating, and even 64% of Democrats don't want him to run in 2024. Do you think he is going to run in 2024?
I don't think he will. That's my personal political opinion. Right now, I don't think his mental health is such, or even his physical health is such that he is going to be capable of going through a vigorous campaign to run for president. And I think sometime in the spring of 2023, he will be announcing that he is not running, because they're going to make the announcement in enough time so that the campaigns have the time to raise the funds that are needed to run through the primary session in early 2024. So my personal opinion is that by March 15th, he will announce that he's not running.
Okay. So another question I have is, in 2024, who would you like to see run on the Republican side?
Right now, my focus is 2022, and you can ask me that question on November 9th of 2022. Until we get done with 2022, I'm not talking about 2024.
All right, that's
good answer. Vaughn, what's your question?
Okay, so recently, the House passed the Respect for Marriage Act, which codifies gay marriage into law. And it's going to the Senate now. I was wondering how you feel about this, considering that it's basically kind of Democrats kind of fear mongering for the midterms. But how do you feel about the bill itself?
My whole issue when it comes to this issue is I'm going to take a little bit more of a libertarian view of it. Is I don't think the government should have any part of what marriage is. And the problem, marriage is a religious institution. It is something that belongs in the church. It's something that's been there forever. And it's something that government has co-opted. And when government co-opts something that's not really in their jurisdiction, what they do is they make a mess of it. And so when the government starts picking winners and losers and giving special tax breaks and special health benefits, and when the government starts getting their hands involved in these religious institutions, what happens is now you have the government starting to get to a position where where they're where they all of a sudden feel like they have a right to now define what marriage is. And you go back thousands of years, marriage has been has been a religious institution, has a very strong religious connotation to it, and you need to get the government out of that. And so I actually think we need to take a long, hard look at, just exactly how much influence the federal, state, and local governments have in something that they really shouldn't be. It really isn't their jurisdiction. It's not something that they should be playing with. And so it's when the government starts giving rights and starts defining something, we create problems. And the way how this bill is worded, there are going to be some real religious problems that are going to arise. And these are not problems that arise except for the government getting their hands into a problem that they probably didn't need to get involved with. And so when you start getting to the place where government is giving special privileges, now you start creating it where more and more people want to come up and I want those rights, I want those privileges. And the farther you go down that line, now you start trampling on the religious rights of others. And so I think ultimately the solution is government getting out of the problem.
All
Hey,
right,
I agree with you.
Does anyone have any other questions?
I just got one more.
Alright.
So have you considered opening up some sort of like TikTok account? A few other candidates have done that, and they've some of them seen a lot of success. So have you ever considered something like that?
We have talked about it. If I were to do it, though, I'm buying a separate cell phone that is not attached, that I can shut down and put in bags. There's just too many problems with the tracing that the Chinese government does on that there is absolutely no way that I would put that on my work cell phone or my political cell phone. I would have to go start a whole separate account and cell phone account just so I could run TikTok. And so it's something I've considered, but haven't done yet.
Yeah, I think this is just me personally, just because I'm kind of on TikTok. I think it would be good for your campaign so that you could get like the attention of the younger, like millennial population, because it works. There's so many political people on TikTok who use it, and it's doing pretty well for a lot of them.
Yeah, it's something that we've considered. It just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea though.
Okay, well, I'll take it under consideration, guys.
Yeah. So does anyone else have any more questions? All right.
I'm all out.
I thank you so much for joining us. I really do appreciate it. This was our first episode, by the way, that we've done. So you're the first guest. Congratulations.
Well, I'm sure you'll figure out a way to, grow and make and expand your reach.
Yeah, so I really, really do appreciate it, and I wish you the best of luck in November. And I think everyone should vote for you, but that's just my
Because
personal
we all hate
political
Gavin
opinion.
Newsom. We don't like Gavin. Like nobody likes him here.
He's not running about Gavin Newsom, but
That's true.
Sometimes
We
it
still all
feels
hate
that
Gavin
way.
Newsom.
He gives me plenty of ammunition. So
it's like you're kind of like running against him in a way.
I mean, I've sued him so many times. I was like, why didn't I run against Gavin Newsom? But